Welcome into the Thunder basketball universe. We are recording this on April 23rd. It is Wednesday, which means the Thunder has officially played 2 games in round 1 of the playoffs against the Memphis Grizzlies. And the Thunder, at this point, up 2-0 in this series, and it has been 2 very exciting, high energy, vibes were awesome inside of Paycom Center for these 2 games.
Yeah, the Thunder did what it was supposed to do here and win the first 2 games at home. Doesn't matter in real terms what those final scores were. Certainly OKC very happy with the way that it played, but as longtime Thunder player, staffer said, happy teams get beat. So OKC, not happy in a big picture sense, but pleased with the product that it put on the floor, recognizing that that's the level of basketball that it's going to have to sustain and probably be even better at on the road here coming up for games 3 and 4.
To your point, after game 1, which was obviously just a massive blowout, a 51-point win for Oklahoma City, the Thunder, we heard from Coach Dagnall, we heard from the players in that practice right after that game in that practice on Monday. Coach Dagnall said they did a really good job getting back to neutral. And this is something that if you watch the Thunder basketball universe a lot, if you've listened to any, interviews with players or coaches, the refrain you hear most often is 0-0. And it's really easy to try to get back to 0-0 after a loss because you kind of want to forget about it. You don't want to think about it too much. Getting back to 0-0 after an awesome big time win, a very emotional win in the playoffs and that sort of environment can be really difficult. And the Thunder did a really good job getting themselves back to 0. Being very level-headed, recognizing that in that first game, the Memphis Grizzlies, it was a 36-hour turnaround from their game against Dallas, and they were, probably tired. They were coming into enemy territory. It's a brand new experience, brand new environment. And so the Thunder recognized all of those factors that went into it and expected the Grizzlies to respond in game 2. So they were able to get back to 0 and put together a really solid, really focused performance in that game.
Yeah. So, in the game 1 win, it was really just run after run after run by the Thunder, sustained runs where it was defense turning into offense. And that made that game really uncompetitive after the middle of the second quarter. The Thunder second unit was just absolutely sensational, and we can dive into some of that.
Yep.
But game 2, the Thunder certainly did expect a different type of effort, output, and sharpness from Memphis. But the really encouraging and heartening thing is that the Thunder was actually the team that delivered the first punch.
Okay.
They played great in the first minutes of that game, got out to a 9-0 run, and defensively they were able to put a stranglehold on the game. They were able to be prepared in addition to that, to the run that Memphis put on in the second half of that game, and were able to kind of twist the game back when Memphis made its push.
Completely locked in for all 8 quarters that the Thunder have played so far in this series. So it's led to some really awesome outcomes, really solid results, and a lot of awesome stats. So we've got stats of the series so far. And Nick, I am going to let you go first. What is your stat?
42 out of 249.
40 is that a shooting percentage?
It is not a shooting percentage. That would be, it
would be like,
it does sound like what the what the Grizzlies have shot in the series because of how great the Thunder's defense has been, but not quite that.
Let's see. So if it's not a shooting percentage, I'm at a loss here, Gallo. What you got?
42 is the total number of points that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has scored in the series, and 249 is the total amount of points that the Thunder has scored. And if you just think about that as a stat, and you're thinking after 2 games, the guy that should win the MVP has scored 42 points. One of those in game 1, his services were really not needed, and after midway through the third quarter, and for this team to have been able to put up 249 points, you think about the growth from really last year, this time, and the beginning of the season.
Great point.
For this team to be able to be doing that against a Memphis squad that has been one of the better teams in the Western Conference all season long, that is extremely impressive, and it goes to show the answers that this team has up and down the roster, the depth that this team has, that even on a couple nights where Shai's jump shot hasn't been going at the rate that it normally has, and the Grizzlies have really been selling out to try to take him away, OKC's counter punches and second weapons are really, really strong right now. The flipping the court the way that Shea has to get, side pick and roll from Aaron Wiggins on the other side of the floor, or J-Dub on the other side of the floor, or that swing action that we saw from Alex Caruso back up the wing to Aaron Wiggins in game 1, where Caruso's just grinning ear to ear because he's creating this ball movement. All of that stuff has been created over the course of the season to prepare this team for these moments.
I love that you brought up this stat because I have so many thoughts on it, because everyone sees, oh, Shea didn't score 20 in game 1, or, oh, he only had 27 in game 2, which, I mean, says a lot about who Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is as a player and as a very, very consistent scorer. But then you look at what the team is able to do. And this is what Shea has talked about all season long, is that this is a team. It's not one player. It's not one person. And that would not make a good outcome for a team if it was just one player and just reliant upon one person. Something that Coach Dagnall says is, look, we want to be a 48-minute team. And there are going to be a lot of minutes where Shea isn't on the floor. And there are going to be a lot of minutes where it's going to be different lineups and players and combinations that we don't see very often. And we want to be able to be effective, and we want to still be very productive in those minutes. And the Thunder has done a very good job this season building a solid muscle of having multiple pitches to be able to throw in these sort of situations. I'll also add on top of that, don't be blinded by scoring, because Shea was not a non-factor in these games.
Certainly, yeah.
He was an incredible facilitator. He was incredible at just utilizing his gravity to give other guys space. And my favorite play of the entire 2 series, I am still not over it. It's a full.
I know what you're about to say.
It's a full 24 hours later, and I think I dreamt about it last night as well. Shea attacked into the middle of the paint. This is game 2. This is game 2. He's attacking into the middle of the paint, and he throws the ball behind his head over. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see. But like he's fully, Lou Dort is behind him on the 3-point line. He can't see him. He just throws it over the top of his head to Lou Dort, who drains a 3-point line. My jaw was on the floor for a full 4 minutes after that possession, because A, how did he see Lou? And B, that just completely speaks to how Shea is still able to be a productive, effective, and beneficial member of this offense, even if his numbers scoring don't necessarily reflect what we've seen from him the rest of the season.
Well, and this is a massive sign as to why Shea should be the MVP, because he's invested all season long in amplifying his teammates, making his teammates better, putting them in positions to succeed, empowering them to play make when he's being double teamed or he's being trapped. It's a miracle in this series so far that there haven't been any 3-second violations called on Memphis, given the way that they have completely jam-packed the paint to try to prevent those downhill drives from Shea. And we saw in game 2 again, when Shea's got Scottie Pippen Jr. on him, which is a tactic by Memphis to try to get a quick guard up underneath Shea and cut off driving lanes. Shea can take him down to the block, but Memphis is sending help over. And what Shea's been able to do is basically act like a Tim Duncan 20 years ago, and on that post-up, kick the ball back out to the perimeter, and he found Chet Holmgren multiple times with perfect timing on those catch-and-shoot threes out top. When that pass is taken away, he's fired at cross court and gotten Lou Dort some looks, or again, created that hockey assist that Isaiah Hartenstein has talked about so many times with Shea, where the initial action comes, the trap comes on Shea, the double team comes flying over, and he's immediately he's seeing that action come, and he's making the exact right read to get OKC in motion.
I'm so glad that you brought this up, and I could talk about it for another 30 minutes, because I do want to add one more point. The reason everyone else was able to knock down shots and, get really efficient scoring in that game is because they had been empowered and have confidence built into them over the course of the season. So when the ball hits their hands in the playoffs, and when the ball hits their hands from Shea in the middle of the game, they're not like, oh my gosh,
what do I do?
What do I do now? It's like, oh no. This is par for the course. This is what we're used to. Let it fly. Otherwise, Shea's going to get mad at me for not shooting this ball, or my teammates are going to get mad at me and yell at me from the bench for not shooting this ball.
Yeah, and the reason that anyone would have that reaction is because these guys have been primed all season long that it's shoot, drive, pass. It's like
quick decisions. The shots are there. The shots were created for you as a part of this offense, not
created for you because you have this stature on the team, and it is your job to shoot, it is your job to pass, it is your job to screen and rebound. It's like when if the ball is hitting your hands in rhythm in a spot to take the shot, that is the direct result of the symphony that is the offense. And so to do your part is to simply be that next motion in action. And so that's been the really encouraging thing here. You know, you see a guy like Alex Caruso who didn't take a shot in game 1, and in game 2 factors in massively. He ends up scoring 13 points on 3 of 6 from 3, and he didn't play a different game. Right. It was just the shots occurred to him differently than they did in game 1.
So cool to see. And obviously the Thunder done very well over the first 2 games here with the numbers that Shea has been putting up in terms of scoring. All right, let me get to my stat here. 48.
The number of minutes in a regulation basketball game.
True. We're going to We're going to take it a step further. 48-8.
Oh, okay. This is the fast break point stat.
What this is. So these are the combined fast break points for the Thunder versus the Memphis Grizzlies over the first 2 games. The Thunder put together a combined 48 fast break points compared to just 8 total for the Memphis Grizzlies over the first 2 games. Here's what stands out to me about this stat. A, we know the Thunder want to play fast. That's been kind of their MO all season long. They turn teams over, they get out on the break, they find good looks on the other end. That has been a very solid formula for them all season long. It's the number 1 defense in the NBA. The Memphis Grizzlies, however, are a really fast team.
Yeah. That's their bread and butter.
That's their bread and butter. This season, for the regular season, the Memphis Grizzlies, 8th in the NBA in fast break points per game. They average 16 per game. So the Thunder has held them to half their average over a 2-game span, which is so impressive to me. The biggest part of this is that the Thunder not only leaned into their own strengths, right? Leaning into the defensive element, turning them over, getting out on the break, but the fact that they were able to take away what is kind of their go-to bread and butter option A for their offense for 2 straight games kind of speaks to me that this group was locked in on game plan execution for 2 straight 48-minute performances.
You just said the pivotal phrase, game plan execution, because basketball is both abstract and concrete. In the coaches meeting at the beginning of the series, I'm sure Mark Daigneault and the staff are sitting down and saying, we need to get back in transition and make sure our transition defense is good, take away their fast breaks. Right. That is an abstract concept. How do you actually do that in practice? How does that become a concrete reality? There's a massive level of maturity, focus, skill, intelligence that is required to take this abstract concept and actually perform it in the realities and the throes of a competitive, emotional NBA playoff basketball game. And the Thunder has been able to take that game plan and execute it, as you said, twice in a row. That is extremely impressive. From a player standpoint, how is that done? How do you actually stop someone's transition offense?
There are a couple of factors that go into it, and this is a perfect segue because A, it's getting back, right? That's part of it. Get back in transition because the Grizzlies, they want to run on missed shots. They'll run on a make. They'll try to get out as fast as possible. But for the Thunder, and this goes back to game 2 for Oklahoma City. They didn't necessarily have the shooting night that they had in game 1 where they put up 131 points, right? It was kind of more of a pedestrian offensive night to the Thunder standards. But they played a really clean floor game, meaning they did not turn the ball over. They only had 7 turnovers total. And those 7 turnovers only translated to 6 points for Memphis. And I think like 3 or 4 of those points came in like the final few minutes of the game where it was very much in the Thunder's favor. And so for Oklahoma City, not getting distracted by the fact that, oh gosh, that's a shot that normally goes in for me, or oh gosh, that was an easy bunny and I missed it. Letting that play go, getting back, hustling back, and doing whatever you have to do to make sure that you don't allow Memphis to play their style and their identity, while also taking care of the ball. This is what we talked about with the fact that the Thunder makes great decisions offensively. It was just sharp offense. They were passing the ball. They were moving it. Even that pass from SGA over the top of his head, that was a crisp, clean pass, wide open to Lou Dort, who knocked down that three. Those sort of things leave very, very few opportunities for Memphis to get a steal, get out in the break, to cause any sort of real disruption for Oklahoma City. And so it leads you to these massive discrepancies in fast break points, which in turn lead to massive discrepancies in just shot attempts and possessions. The Thunder were plus 12 in field goal attempts in game 2. I mean, it's just like, sometimes if you just boil it down, if you get more shot attempts, if you get more cracks at, a good look, you're going to put yourself in a position to have more points at the end of the game.
Yeah, big picture, more shots, better shots.
Exactly.
Is the Thunder's philosophy. There's 2 additional layers that I want to touch on.
Let's do it.
Which are the floor balance. So you're talking about the great way that the Thunder was able to make sure that their passing lanes were clean, that there were clear and obvious passes. What that additionally creates is clear and obvious shots. That means that there's good floor balance. It's predictable when a shot is going up. There's an understanding by Thunder players, okay, I'm in the correct position on the floor. My teammate's shot just went up. I'm in a spot where either I need to fly through the elbows and be there for an offensive rebound, something the Thunder has done at an extremely high level so far in this series. They were, again, I think, plus 13 rebounding in yesterday's game. And so because you have that great floor balance and everybody's in the correct spots, they understand what their jobs are in transition defense.
Exactly.
The second layer is the personnel. And obviously the Thunder has defensive-minded personnel. That's one part of it. The other part is the centers that the Thunder has on this team. Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein, Jay Will. They are all athletic and fast. They might be big, they might be centers, but they are able to get back in transition defense at an extremely high level. And because of their rim protection, and they do it in different ways, them being back, them being athletic and quick enough to get back really helps set up the Thunder's defense for success. That's major credit to Sam Presti and the Thunder front office for putting together a roster that is coherent and that can logically follow to have a brand and identity.
It's not as straightforward as you think of just run really fast, get out in transition, score a bunch of fast break points. When Coach Dagnall was asked after game 2, which one is more impressive? The fact that you put up 48 fast break points or you held Memphis to 8? He said, probably the fact that we held Memphis to 8. And it's for that reason, because it speaks to Oklahoma City's game plan execution, the personnel that they have on their roster and that they're all locked in, and the fact that the Thunder is executing so well offensively that it doesn't even leave any room for Memphis to try to get out and transition on their own.
Yeah, the takes around sort of the NBA media ecosystem are not going to be about transition defense when you talk about this series, but I promise you, this is what the Thunder is talking about.
Yes.
This is what the Thunder is focused on and concerned with heading into game 3, where they recognize that Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. are going to be extremely aggressive. Luke Kennard, who we saw a little bit of in game 2, going to be extremely aggressive, taking shots early in the shot clock. That is why the Thunder is so crystal clear in its focus on this being a massive factor in this series.
The Thunder has such a talent and an ability to take a really good NBA team and completely make them look like a different team, right? And it's all about taking away their fastball. And I'm using Coach Dagnall's terms because this is what he does. He says, we want to have multiple pitches that we can throw as a team, but we want to take away the opposing team's fastball. And we want to take them away from their plan A. And the Thunder has done that exquisitely here over the first 2 games against the Memphis Grizzlies.
I got to thank Mark Dagnall for turning Paris into a baseball girlie, because I'm not sure she would have known fastball, multiple pitches.
Wouldn't have been in my lexicon
over the last 6 years. We got you, Paris.
I know. Shout out to Mark Dagnall for bringing that across my desk, because it wouldn't have been
right
there
across your plate.
My plate. That's good. That's really good. Okay, I have a bonus stat.
Great.
I have a bonus stat. Let's see if you know this. 1.1.
1.1. Okay. 1.1. This sounds like, like a points per possession kind of thing.
That's good.
I don't know if you're like going into the deep
maybe
analytical
I should
stat
actually give
heads.
you the full number.
Okay. All right.
1.1 million.
1.1 million?
1.1 million.
Dollars that suit jacket that you were wearing cost. what you had on in game 2.
I definitely felt like 1.1 million bucks. I'll tell you that much.
More than $1 million. Okay.
No, This is the number of t-shirts distributed.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
By the Thunder since 2010.
Nice.
So, as most people know, as I'm sure most of our amazing Thunder Basketball Universe listeners know, every playoff game here in Paycom Center, every single fan receives a free t-shirt that they are fully expected to wear.
Yes.
Wear those t-shirts because you were just part of a unit, an entire sea of a solid color rooting on a team, and it just creates this amazing playoff atmosphere. That all started in 2010, and it has become a time-honored tradition. And I heard this stat yesterday from Dan Mahoney, who's a friend of the pod, and he said the Thunder has distributed over 1.1 million t-shirts since 2010. And I'm like, that is so cool. Because 18,000 fans all wearing the same t-shirt is one thing. But then you take one of those fans who's been a part of, Thunder fandom since 2010. And I'm like, they're collecting these things. They're framing them. They're making quilts. And I just think it's a cool thing to say, this t-shirt, I got it for free at the Thunder game. But it says, I was there when the Thunder beat the Memphis Grizzlies in game 2 of round 1 in 2025 because you only get it if you're at the game. I just think that's so cool.
I'm just trying to imagine 1.1 million t-shirts piled into the offices here at Paycom Center. And, our producer, Matt Bishop, just kind of trying to do his job, huddled behind all these boxes. That's remarkable. It's amazing to think about the depth of history. My opening hit, well, it wasn't technically opening because it was in the first quarter. Last night was about the depth of experience that this Thunder organization has in the playoffs. 126 playoff games under its belt. And you just think about in a short time frame, 17 seasons, to have that many playoff games under your belt, and at the very least 4 more coming up in this round. It's just remarkable to see what this organization has been able to do in a short period of time here. Even just looking out here at Scissortail Park, I remember my first playoffs with the Thunder in 2012. So a couple years after the team was initially in the playoffs, and to look out this window. Well, first of all, these offices weren't even here at this point, but to see this view of downtown was completely different. And did not nearly look as gorgeous as it does here today. So I think all of us in Oklahoma City should feel very proud of the Thunder's role in the reshaping of downtown. And the t-shirt's a nice little relic maybe of the growth that's happened here over the course of time.
So, and I'm curious too, because we have a lot of Thunder fans, and if you come to Paycom Center during the playoffs, you get one of those t-shirts. I'm just curious, how many playoff t-shirts do you have? Let us know. Let us know. And how many different colors?
I've heard of cool things people have done with them, like they've turned them into, quilts or drapes or something, kind of
put them in frames.
That you can kind of stitch them together and turn them into something larger than just, a t-shirt.
I just think it's so special. And since 2010, I mean, everyone was wearing the shirts in 2010 too. And I mean, like, there's a picture right outside of our podcast studio of the playoffs. Everyone's wearing their t-shirts. And that was, in the early days. And so that just being a time-honored tradition to where we are now in 2025, and oh my gosh, the sea of blue that was inside of Paycom Center was absolutely spectacular. So fun to watch. So I just wanted to bring that up because 1.1 million, my goodness, since 2010, that's incredible. Okay, so we have a couple other things that we want to hit over the course of these 2 games. And one of those, we've really touched on it a lot, but it's the Thunder's defense in this series, which we've said the word focused. We've said, game plan execution. All of those things are true, and it's yielded some really incredible results against a Memphis Grizzlies team, mind you, which is one of the highest scoring offenses in the NBA throughout the regular season. They've yet to crack 100 so far in this series, and that has a lot to do with the Thunder's defense. One player that I have to point out, Lou Dort. Because he obviously is tasked with the assignment of defending Ja Morant. Just an electric scorer offensively. And Ja Morant has been very inefficient over the course of this series so far. He had 23 points in game 2 on 25 attempts. And then in game 1, just could not find any sort of rhythm. A lot of that has to do with Lou Dort.
His activity, his energy level is sensational. The play that will be forever etched in my mind from this series is Morant, went over a screen. Lou gets to the spot, beats him to the spot at the elbow by diving and rushing under the screen. So he's closing the space. Lou actually slips and falls down.
Mm-hmm.
Morant takes a little escape dribble towards the baseline. Lou somehow is able to pick himself up off the ground, get back to the spot there on the baseline, and block the shot.
Yep.
As Morant goes in for what's one of his patented little push shots,
Mm-hmm.
floaters from 6 to 12 feet. Morant is one of the best in the NBA, and for Lou to be able to close the gap twice on the same possession while falling down speaks to his activity level. He did something very similar in Game 2, where again he closes to the perimeter in help defense. He actually slips and falls. A long rebound comes out. Lou is basically still on the floor, but the ball gets tapped out, and Lou basically Spider-Man kicks himself up off the ground and reaches up with one hand to ignite a fast break.
Yeah.
And it's J-Dub out on the run. And those are the types of plays that you can't make if you don't have the type of motor that you have to play this level of basketball. Alex Caruso told us after last night's game, if you aren't playing with that level of hustle and activity, you're probably not built for this time of year. And of course, Caruso is a guy that we saw that completely single-handedly wrecked that game in 22 minutes last night.
I want to talk about Alex Caruso too, because his energy along with Lou Dort, and I mean, like, we could go down the line truly of every single guy on this roster having an amazing defensive possession, an amazing defensive play or stretch or run. But Alex Caruso in Game 2 in that second half, oh my goodness, it felt like there were three of them. Three of them out there on the floor, whether it was, and a lot of what's going to get highlighted during that stretch for Alex Caruso was, the threes that he made, or, him diving on the floor for the loose ball. But it's even the possessions, and Royce Young talked about this in the post-game show on FanDuel Sports Network after Game 2. He said there were even possessions where, like, he didn't get his hand on the ball at all, but completely threw off Memphis's rhythm offensively, and either forced a fumble or a turnover of some sort, but he just didn't even touch the ball. And that's just the effect that Alex Caruso has.
He also is developing a relationship in real time with the fans at Paycom Center. You just see the symbiotic nature of when Caruso does certain things. He dives on the floor for a loose ball, tied up Jaren Jackson Jr., blocked Ja Morant on closing in from help side defense. There's just a level of understanding inside Paycom Center of what goes into winning basketball. They respond to Lou Dort in a very similar way. They respond to Cason Wallace in a very similar way. And Caruso, he seems to have this fan base like tied around his finger right now in a way of just like they're really endeared to him and what he leaves on the floor every night. And big picture, Paris, I think what we're seeing is the power of the Thunder's depth on display. Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, those guys, and Lou Dort too, they have the freedom to go out there and play with their hair on fire. For Lou, it was 33 minutes. For Cason, it was 24. Caruso, it was 22. Because they don't have to conserve anything out there on the floor thinking about foul trouble, or am I going to have enough energy for the fourth quarter, or anything like that, because of how this roster was constructed.
And all of those guys work so well together as well when they're out there on the court. It's really cool to see, Lou Dort being able to just completely glue himself to Ja Morant, knowing that Alex Caruso can handle Jaren Jackson Jr. back there if he needs to, or, get over there to Desmond Bane and close out on that guy. And so it's just like all of these guys work so well together in a very symbiotic way. It's very, very cool to see. The depth shows up offensively as well. I mean, like, this has been a big theme for Oklahoma City all season long, is the fact that they have so many different guys that they can go to. And Alex Caruso, 13 points in Game 2. You had Cason Wallace, who put together some really awesome minutes as well. Aaron Wiggins, oh my gosh, in Game 1, 21 points. He didn't check in until the second quarter of that game. Did it again in Game 2, checked in the second quarter. First time touching the floor, has 6 points in 3 minutes.
Yeah, 8 points in 8 minutes. And look, he didn't play in the second half. And conditions are going to change through these playoff games. The Grizzlies played much smaller, but with bigger players at different positions. It's just there's different combos that desperate coaching staffs are going to go to throughout the course of a playoff game, let alone a playoff series. So don't be alarmed. Don't be surprised if Mark Daigneault and the Thunder coaching staff is responding throughout the course of games and not rolling out the exact same rotation in the second half that they did in the first half, and vice versa, because those Aaron Wiggins minutes in the first half were absolutely critical, and it was a button that Mark Daigneault and the Thunder was able to push in that period of time, given the way that Memphis was playing, given the way that the Thunder was playing. The game can morph and turn, so be prepared for those types of things to impact exact, deployments over the course of a game. But you have to love, if you're the Thunder and you're a Thunder fan, that effectively to this point, in game one, the Thunder played 11 rotation guys and then a few more in the fourth quarter. And the Thunder effectively, between Jay Will and Aaron Wiggins, played 9 to 10 guys in game two, in a game that was much more in the balance. So feeling like you have a full 10-man rotation with still really talented players who can produce in Kenrich Williams and AJ Mitchell and Dylan Jones, who have done stuff for you all season, going into the road trip, I think you got to feel really good about, because there's some teams around the NBA that right now have already tightened to 8 or 7 guys when we're only 2 games into these series.
We heard this from Coach Daigneault going into the playoffs, right at the end of that week of practice that they had. He said, we have to understand that depth is a strength of ours, and we have every intention of leaning into that going into the playoffs, because we know that we have a lot of confidence in a lot of guys on this roster. And so there will come a time where you'll see, one guy have a really big game like we saw in game one with Aaron Wiggins. The next night, it might be another guy like we saw in game two with Alex Caruso. And that's just 2 guys, you know, and the Thunder has so many guys. I mean, Isaiah Joe, they haven't talked much about him, Kenrich Williams, Cason Wallace, all of these guys are perfectly capable and have a lot of confidence in their abilities offensively, defensively as well. So all that to say, who knows what the next game holds? What we do know is that we're about to head out to Memphis. So being inside of FedEx Forum, going to be a little bit of a different vibe than what we saw in Oklahoma City. But the Thunder fully prepared for whatever Memphis throws their way.
And what's most likely going to be thrown is a desperate, hungry team and a desperate fan base as well. I mean, this is a team, again, we always talk about that competitive empathy. The Grizzlies were the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, the brutally tough Western Conference, a Western Conference littered with Hall of Famers up and down that conference. They were the number 2 seed for most of this season. They've gone through a lot here over the last 3 or 4 months. That doesn't mean that they can't tap back into who they have been. In fact, the challenge that's going to be in front of them is, we've got nothing to lose. Let's be the hungry, fired up, feisty, energetic team that we were for a huge chunk of this season. And let's put that on the floor here at home in front of our fans, who are going to be rabid. That's what the Thunder is walking into this weekend.
And this is where the competitive empathy comes in to play for Oklahoma City, recognizing that, you beat Memphis handily in game 2, but Memphis is probably flying back to Tennessee after that game, feeling a lot better about themselves and how they played in game 2 versus game 1. Because you remember, in that third quarter in game 2, Memphis chopped that lead down to just 9 points. They went on a really solid 8 points, excuse me. They went on a really solid run. They put together some really good possessions. And so they're probably going back to Tennessee feeling like, okay, we've got the tools in our arsenal, and they're probably feeling pretty confident, and also adding to the fact that, what do we have to lose here? And so the Thunder, it's going to require another really focused, locked-in effort, not getting too comfortable with this 2-0 lead.
Yeah, I remember being in playoff series here with the Thunder where OKC got down 0-2 to San Antonio, lost in a massive blowout in game 1 in a different series to San Antonio. And, the attitude and feeling kind of being like, don't let us get the next one. Don't let us get the next one, because if we do, then we're going to start feeling good about ourselves and are going to be able to have unlock some things and start firing on all cylinders. We saw the confidence that Memphis is able to play with in the second quarter of game 2, and then really in the third quarter. That is the flow that OKC has to wrestle away and get back to that game flow that it had the first 5 quarters of this series, where in the first 5 quarters of the series, OKC didn't even allow Memphis to score 100 total points. So that's where OKC needs to be. A lot easier said than done on the road. But we talked about before, this Thunder team wise beyond its years
Yep.
with the ability to take an abstract concept and turn it into reality.
So 2 really good challenges ahead of the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're heading out to Memphis for 2 games. Game 3 is going to take place on Thursday. That is an 8:30 p.m. Central Time. I know the tips have been kind of all over the place
Yes, they have.
in this series. I mean, we had 6:30 last night, and then the first game was a noon tip-off. That was kind of crazy on Easter Sunday. So 8:30 p.m. Central Time for Game 3 on Thursday, and then Game 4 is going to be at 2:30 Central Time. So make sure your alarms are set. Got to get it written down on your calendar to watch the Thunder take on the Memphis Grizzlies in these next 2 games. And you can catch it on FanDuel Sports Network. We got you covered here.
Nice plug.
I got you covered. All right. Thanks so much for watching and tuning in. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.